Okay, good morning everyone. Shalom Aleichem, Baruch Haba. We're continuing Mishna Berura, Daf Hashavua. We're learning Siman Ayin Aleph. Holiest Kriya Shema. Avel v'ha'oiskim b'ameis Patron mikriya Shema. A mourner and anyone who is involved with a mess is exempt from Kriya Shema. Now we learned yesterday that even if you're involved in eating or drinking, there's a question whether you have to stop. We learned the day before that if you're oisek in sarchei rabim v'higia zman kriya shema lo yafsek. Now we're talking about a different inyan, an avel. Misha meis lo meis shu chayv l'sabalav. Somebody who a relative passed away, someone you're obligated to mourn for. Afilu inay muta alav l'kavrai. You're obligated to mourn, but it's not necessarily your responsibility to bury. Pater mikriya shema mitfila. You're pater from shema and tefillah. Even if you would like to be machmer and to read, you're not allowed to. If you have someone to make efforts on your behalf with the needs of burial, and you want to be machmer on yourself and read, it sounds like it's not the right thing to do, but we're not going to throw rotten tomatoes at you. Okay? Ayin b'yordea Siman shin mem aleph. It says in Mishna Berura, shu chayev. Who is someone that you have to be misabel for? They are shehim shiva kroivim, the 7 relatives. They are av, va'im, bain, ubas, ach, va'achais v'ishtay. Father and mother, son and daughter, brother and sister, and a wife. Einoi mutal. It does not. It's not incumbent upon you. Even someone who you don't have to bury. Why? Why wouldn't you have to bury one of your 7 relatives? Let's say your sister passed away, who she's married, so it's on her husband. You're still pater. Now, what if you do read it anyway? You are not yotzei the mitzvah. Pater v'imkara ino yotzei. If you read, you're not yet to the mitzvah of tzarich lachzor v'likros achar kvura. You have to reread it after the kvura. So you're pater from kriya shema and from tefillah. Now the Mishna Berura says v'chein mikol habrachos. One is pater from all brachos. Let's say you hear someone who is an avel make a bracha. Rav Shlomo Zalman says in the Shas Mincha Shloimei that you're not allowed to answer Amen. It's a bracha levatala. So someone who is, now I think we're going to see this talking about an Onen, even though the Mechaber did not use that terminology Onen, but we're not talking about an Avel during the Shiva Simei Avelos. During the Shiva Simei Avelos, you're chayiv in Mitzvos, you're chayiv in Kriya Shema and Tefillah. We're talking about someone who is mourning for a relative that has not yet been buried, even though it's not upon you to bury them. You're not allowed to daven. You're not allowed to say Shema. If you want to be machmir, it's an avera. What if you have someone to take care of the kvura? It's not the right thing to do, but we won't protest. But it's not correct. It's not correct to daven and to say Shema. What about to make a bracha on a glass of water? You're not allowed to, even berachas nehenin. What about the bracha of dayan ha'emes? The Gesher HaChaim says you do make that bracha when you're in Onen. Why? It's choivas hasha'a. What about the Shulchan Aruch says that if a relative dies, so not only do you make dayan ha'emes, you also make a shachianu or hatav meter for the Yerusha. That you do not make. So even though the Shulchan Aruch says that when a relative passes away, you make 2 brachas, dayan ha'emes and hatav meter, that hatav meter you're going to have to delay. That's the opinion of the Gesher HaChaim. Shlomo Zalman says that no, you make that bracha as well, because kashem shemavarchim al hara kach mavarchim al tov. What about asher yatzar eschem bedin when you go into a beis hakvaros? The Eish Avram Buchach says an oinen is pater even after the kvura. Why? Because once you're pater when you enter, so you came in at a time that you don't make it. You don't make it on the way out. By the way, he says that those with the Onen do not make it either. This is something people don't know. Everyone thinks, I haven't been there in 30 days, so I'm at a kvura, so I have to make asher yatzar eschem bedin. No. The Avel doesn't make it, and therefore neither does anybody else. That's the minhag. However, Rav Shlomo Zalman says no, the Malavim do say it. Rav Nissen Karelet says even the Onen says it. What about learning Torah? So in Siman Tavkuf Memches, it brings, it's usher for an Onen to learn Torah. What about on Yom Tif? We'll have to see. And even those matters that an Avel is allowed to learn, an Onen is not allowed to learn. Unless it's something he needs to know now, halacha l'maisa. What about laharar b'divrei Torah? The Das Kadoshim says, mutter. The Maram Shik says, asr. Okay, we just said that an Onen is pater from Birchas Hananen. Asr lehanos me'olam hazeh b'lei bracha. What's the pshat? Is the pshat that, and we know, by the way, that an Onen is not doing avera, an Onen can't wear shatnez, so how is he allowed to not make Birchas Hananen asr la'adam lehanos ba'olam hazeh b'lei bracha? He's violating an isser. No, eating without a bracha is not an isser, it's kabitul mitzvos aseh d'Rabbanan. Therefore, the Onen can be mevatel it. Okay, now this is a very interesting aside. The din that an Onen is allowed to eat without a bracha, the Gesher Chaim says, Rav Shlomo Zalman says, the Emek Bracha says, that this demonstrates that the Isser to eat without a bracha is noiveya from the mitzvah to be mevarech. Since there's a mitzvah to be mevarech, memela it's Isser to eat without a bracha. Therefore, the Onen is exempt. Now, the shah is like this. I understand if you're hungry, we'll let the Onen eat without making a bracha. But what if it's a hana, he doesn't really have to partake? Let's say smelling something. So do we say, well, eating, we understand, you can't make a bracha, but you have to eat. But who asked you to smell this? So Shlomo Zalman says, no, there are no restrictions. Since he's not to make a bracha, he's allowed to smell without a bracha. The Gesher Chaim is masupik. Maybe it's better for him not to put himself in that situation. Weiter, the Mishna Berura says, "Umikol mitzvos hamuros b'Torah is exempt from all mitzvos." What about Tainus Esther? What about Tanesim? Does he have to fast? He's chayiv l'hisanois. Why? Because he's not oisek in it. What about Hadlakas Ner Chanukah? Later on, Mishna Berura says, Tafresh Ayin, Sivkat Yud Beis, Ishtoi Tadlik. What if he doesn't have, his wife's not around? He lights without a bracha. What about Sfiras HaOmer? And the good Shiloh. What about an Onen b'Sfiras HaOmer? The Ber Halacha says, Siman Taf Pei Tes, that in the name of the Noda B'Yehuda, there's a suffix. Maybe it only takes a few moments, so it's not going to preoccupy him from being involved in a mess. Noda B'Yehuda says count without a bracha, and then you could continue counting with a bracha. What about talis katan? You put it on? You could wear it. Why? Since you wear it as a garment, it's like doing a mitzvah b'machshava. It's not considered a pegia in the covet of the mess. What about tefillin? Now the halacha is an Onen does not wear tefillin on the an Avel does not wear tefillin on the first day. So if you have somebody and you're about to tell them about shemes leimes, it's better not to tell them until after they put on tefillin, so they don't miss a day of their life without tefillin. Because so long as they don't know, the aninus is not chal. Okay. Weiter. Okay. When we call mitzvos somros v'toy, he's exempt from all mitzvos and Torah. V'imroitz alecha pas. What if he wants to eat bread? After enot tzarich levar chamoitzi, even though he doesn't make a hamoitzi, mikamakim tzarich litol yadav. He has to wash his hands. V'lo yivarich ala natila. Now, why would you say he has to wash his hands?
It's an issur to eat without washing hands.
Is it an issur to eat, or is there a mitzvah to wash your hands? And memela, it's issur to eat. I would say the latter. There's no issur to eat without your hands washing. You have a positive mitzvah, right? The same way by a bracha, I would have thought it's issur to eat without a bracha. Chazal say issur le'nos b'en mazah b'lei bracha, but we don't interpret it that way. We interpret it it's noiveya from the mitzvah. I would have thought. Why does he wash his hands? I mean, we have all kinds of svaras. If it doesn't take up time and it doesn't, is it because it's asr? Not sure. Okay. Now, what about eating in a sukkah? Okay, one second. Let's read a little bit further in the Mishna Berura. We'll come back to this in a minute. V'lo yivarech al natila. By the way, the Kaf HaChaim says he washes even mayim achronim. Okay. V'im yesh chabura be'ir shenogim shekatafim miyuchadim lahitzi hames. If there is a chabura in the city, meaning there's a chaver kadisha that the body bearers are designated to take out the mess. And after the kroivim make the arrangements, they give it over to them, and they bury. As soon as they give it over to the chaver kadisha, they're chayv in all the mitzvos. Even before they take the mess out of the house, because now it's not mutal on them anymore. Now that's more typically the situation in our times, where basically as soon as the mess passes on, you give over the mess to the chaver kadisha. So I'm not sure lamaisa bezman hazeh. Why do the restrictions of aninus apply? Basically, the family doesn't do anything.
Kovoi.
What?
Kovoi.
Good svara, but the Mishna Berura says not.
That's what the post can say.
The Mishna Berura says that if there's a chevra, as soon as you hire the chevra, then there's no more aninus.
So the Mishna Berura says "Eina mutal alayim," it's no longer on him, but the Mechaber said specifically, even if it's never on you, even if it wasn't your chiyuv altogether, aninus applies.
Okay, good. There's a difference between what the Mechaber says and what the Mishna Berura says. The Mechaber says, if you have a guy to do it for you, then that's okay.
The first line, not the last line. The first line of the Mechaber, right away, Nisha Meis,
it's not your responsibility.
Even the Mechaber himself, when he says later, if he has somebody else to do it, why should that matter? It wasn't your responsibility to begin with.
No, now we're talking about someone who it is your responsibility.
In a case where it is.
Yeah. It seems like there's a difference between chaver kadisha and just you have a guy, you have somebody to do it for you.
But the Onen are still involved with the chaver kadisha. It depends what they do. I mean,
what do they have to do?
They tie the gartel. It's a certain covenant on this. They tie the gartel to do certain things.
When do they do that? In the funeral chapel?
Yes. Actually, by the tahara.
By the tahara. So, but the Mishna Berura says once you give it over to them, you're chayv in mitzvahs. There's a big shaila. Let's say somebody's flying to Eretz Yisrael. You're on a plane. Well, you can't do anything to help the mess. So why are you an Onen? So I say an Onen because you're preparing the hesped. You have to prepare the hesped. That's the biggest kavod, the hesped. Okay, it's interesting. If a levaya is pushed off till the next day, Rav Shlomo Zalman says in Chashloimai that when the relatives go to sleep, they're chayiv in Kriyishma and in Hamapel, because at this point in time, there's nothing they could do anymore.
Allah is found in the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch and the Gesher HaChaim, not like the Mishna Berura. That's the minhag. The minhag is like the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch.
By the way, the Gesher HaChaim says that if the family is not going out with the body, the anina stops. The aninus is over. Okay, but so Mishna Berura says an interesting svar. If there's a chevra, once you give it over, the aninus ceases. Then he says, it's not right that the oinunim wait until after the kvura. The take of kishenespashu emachabura kadisha ba'ad makam kvura. The moment they make up where the mess is being buried, v'nasnu lahem kol hoitzais v'sachrichem. They give them all the expenses and the shrouds. Chayavim l'spalel. Now, most of the time, the family does come to the Makam Kfura. It's interesting, most of the time you will not see the relatives being involved in the Kfura for some reason. I don't know, maybe the Chaver Kaddish tells them it's too traumatic for them. But if they are doing part of the Kfura, that's more of a reason to legitimize why they're not doing mitzvahs. But he says, Va'amnam, L'famim shadayin einon shavim be'eza makam yikbru. Sometimes they haven't really made up where they will be buried. V'hu kvoidoi shalmeis. It's still the honor of the mess that the family is making arrangements, or so long as they eulogize him as I pater, then they're pater. The take of achar zeh, immediately after this, mutar l'spalal, they're permitted to daven v'chayiv and they're chayiv. So if they're still making arrangements, if there are still, fine details that are up in the air, then they're still oining him. I'm sorry. Or so long as they're eulogizing him. That's the key. The key is, back in the day, you would give the mess to the Chevra Kadisha after the Levaya. But nowadays, so as soon as you give it to the Chevra, the Anina stops. But nowadays, just because you give it to the Chevra before, as soon as the person dies, the Mishna Berura clearly says, Kol zman shemaspidin oisai, you're pater. So if the hesped didn't take place yet, you're for sure an oinen. You're still involved in kvaydei shalmes. I think that's the answer. We're not arguing on the Mishna Berura. The Mishna Berura is talking about a situation where you didn't give it over to the chevra until after the hespedim, because he says clearly, kozman shmaspidin oisai pater. The take of achar zeh mutar l'spal v'chayiv, and immediately after this, it's permitted to daven and you're chayiv. But if there is no designated chabura, even though you have a guy, here, Mendy, this is the answer to your question. There's a chiluk between a chevra and a guy. Just because you have a guy, it's still on you. It's not, your responsibility is not relinquished unless there is a chevra. Then the aninus continues until the burial, and you put the dust on him. So the din that the chevra paters you does not apply to a guy. By the way, the Dirshu asks an interesting question. The Dine Avelos begin when they finish throwing the dust on you. So why does the Aninus stop as soon as they throw the dust on? Here the Kasha. Here the Mishna Berura says, Miyad k'shemaschin lahashal afar alav. So nimshach Aninus ad sheyikberu v'yashlichu afar alav. But the Avelos does not begin until all the dust is on you. So I have an interesting question. So what is the status of somebody in the 3 minutes in between when they start to throw the dust and they finish? He's not an Onen, he's not an Avel. He should put on tefillin. Why shouldn't he put on tefillin?
Is it a basic verse at the end?
What?
You don't put on tefillin first day, it's there.
You don't put on the first day of Avelos. It's not the first day of Avelos. First day of Avelos didn't start yet.
You put on tefillin a basic verse.
So you run out of basic verse.
What I missed.
What is he, nothing? He's not Onen?
He's nothing. He's zero. What is he? If he sells life insurance, he's a life insurance salesman. If he sells used cars, he's a used car salesman. What?
Impossible. He's one or the other. What? He is din for
Yes.
Either way, it takes 30 seconds, not 3 minutes.
Whatever it is, so make it longer. Doesn't take long to put on tefillin. In the Dirshu, note 8, he brings that Le'inyan Avelos in Yardeh we say only when they finish the Avelos starts. So the Shari Tshuva here writes, Aninos kala yoiser v'nifsika miyad kishmaschil lahashchas afar. L'chayra, he's still an Avel. I have two ways to say it. Either, even though the Avelos didn't start, it still has a din of Avelos Yom Rishon. The Nihug Avelos did not begin, but it's still an Avel b'Yom Rishon. Why? Because later on today, he'll be an Avel. So, on the day someone starts to become an Avel, he doesn't put on tefillin at any time, even at a time that the Nihug Avelos has not begun. Or, when in Yardeh, when we say the Avelos begins, when it's finished, it means legabe dine morning, not legabe the din of tefillin. Anyway, the Mishna Berura continues. As soon as they throw the dirt on him, the Avel should go home. He should immediately go. So, what do you mean? It's not covered in the mace. Yeah, it is. He doesn't need to be there. The mess doesn't need him to throw dirt on him. The mess is not saying, throw dirt on me, throw dirt on me. The mess didn't say that. He has to leave. The relative must leave immediately. As soon as the dust starts to be thrown, he has to leave and daven. Ve'im nimshach. Okay, it's very late. Let's hold it over here, okay? We'll hold it over here. Shkoyach, everyone. Have a great day.
Only it started off that an Onen is put from this footer. Shizu, isn't he Osir? Why is the Russian footer?
Yeah, he is Asar. Yes. The first step is he's Pater. Once he's Pater, he's Asar.